Okay. Shayantanam of the evening, asanam, the dining, kritvam, having done, Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, Devaki Sutam, the son of Devaki, Suhritsu, toward his well-wishing relatives and friends. Ritam, about the behavior. Kamsasyam, of Kamsa. Pabricham, he inquired. Anyat, other. Chikirshitam, intentions. After the evening meal, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, asked Akrura how Kamsa was treating their dear relatives and friends and what the king was planning to do. So, yesterday also Chandramali Maharaj read a few more verses, so I will go on until the purpose. He stopped at 7, yeah, he didn't went towards 7, yeah. We will anyway go forward, so. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear gentle uncle Akrura, was your trip here comfortable? May all good fortune be yours. Are our well-wishing friends and our relatives, both close and distant, happy and in good health? But, my dear Akrura, as long as King Kamsa, that disease of our family, goes by the name maternal uncle, is still prospering, why should I even bother to ask about the well-being of our family members and his other subjects? Just see how much suffering I have caused my offenseless parents. Because of me, their sons were killed and they themselves in prison." So here Chandramali Maharaj stopped. We will emphasize this point later on, so we will continue now. "By good fortune, we have today fulfilled our desire to see you, our dear relative. O gentle uncle, please tell us why you have come." Shukadev Goswami said, in response to the Supreme Lord's request, Akrura, the descendants of Madhu, described the whole situation, including King Kamsa's enmity towards the Yadus and his attempt to murder Vasudeva. Akrura relayed the message he had been sent to deliver. He also described Kamsa's real intentions and how Narada had informed Kamsa that Krishna has been born as the son of Vasudeva. So we can see here that Narada has cooked up the situation, informing Kamsa about Krishna and Vasudeva. And so Akrura told him that Kamsa knows all of these things. Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, the vanquisher of heroic opponents, laughed when they heard Akrura's words. The lords then informed their father, Nanda Maharaj, of King Kamsa's orders. Nanda Maharaj then issued orders to the cowherdmen by having the village constable make the following announcement through Nanda's domain of Vraja. Go collect all the available milk products. Bring valuable gifts and yoke your wagons. Tomorrow we shall go to Mathura, present our milk products to the king and see a very great festival. The residents of all the outlying districts are also going. So Nanda Maharaj was bringing here ghee and other milk products and taxes for the king. I will go just a few more verses until the purport. When the young gopis heard that Akrura had come to Vraja to take Krishna and Balaram to the city, they became extremely distressed. Some gopis felt so pained at heart that their faces turned pale from their heavy breathing. Others were so anguished that their dresses, bracelets and braids became loose. Other gopis entirely stopped their sensory activities and became fixed in meditation on Krishna. They lost all awareness of the external world, just like those who attain the platform of self-realization. Purport of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The gopis were in fact already on the platform of self-realization. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Jivera Svaruphoy Krishnera Nityadas. The self or individual soul is an eternal servant of Krishna. Thus, because they were rendering the most intense loving service to the Lord, the gopis were situated at the highest stage of self-realization. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivacham Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupada Krishna Prishta Bhutale Shrimati Radhanath Swami Nitinamini Namo Vishnupada Krishna Prishta Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shnyavadi Paschate Deshatanina. So, we are having here a beautiful and very heartbreaking pastime that is happening just in this chapter that Chandramauli Maharaj yesterday started, and like he said, Akrura Prabhu, he was a devotee, and he was just there in the quarters of Kamsa serving that royal family because Vasudev and Devaki were in prison, and Kamsa asked him to do some very abominable act, and that is to steal Krishna from Vrindavan. And Akrura knew what that meant, and but still he complied, and he decided to do it because he saw that Kamsa was torturing Devaki and Vasudev, and also that whole Yadu dynasty would be destroyed because of that. And interesting is that Kamsa, he was a coward. He didn't went to Vrindavan. He didn't went to kill Krishna there. He was a coward, and he wanted that Krishna comes to him because he felt that that he will be more powerful there, that he could arrange things to kill him. So Akrura decided to go, and while he was going to Vrindavan, he was in a meditation, meditating on Krishna and how he will see him. And he was so absorbed that he didn't even notice what was going on, how he was coming to Vrindavan. And then when he came to Vrindavan, he came to his consciousness, and then all of those desires and dreams came true. That Krishna greeted him so affectionately as a maternal uncle, and cared for him and brought him home. And then, now we are there when Krishna asks Akrura about his intentions, what is the situation in Mathura, even though he knew that Kamsa was there and there was no fortune in Mathura because of that. And he was feeling, this is the very important point where Chandramal Maharaj stopped yesterday, that Krishna felt very bad that his parents and Yadu dynasty is suffering so much. And not only that, but he also felt that Vrindavan and his most beloved devotees were also being endangered by Kamsa and all of the other suras like Jarasandha and others. So they were attacking Vrindavan all the time, and they were like bringing whole Rajavasis in the danger. And because Krishna came to this world to protect his devotees, to give blessings to his devotees and to destroy the miscreants, the demons, so his mission was needed to be done and revealed, his later pastimes. So he was very enraged here. And then he is continuing to ask Akrura what is the situation. And then Akrura told him about what is Kamsa doing, and and when Krishna heard that, he was like enraged, like a volcano. He was like so angry on Kamsa, and he jumped out and he wanted, to finish him. And even though Kamsa said, Akrura said about Kamsa's real intention, that he wants Krishna to be brought to Vrindavan to kill him, and that Narada has, cooked up that situation by revealing that to Kamsa that Krishna is the son of Vasudeva and that he is in Vrindavan. Even though Kamsa was the most powerful demon, and he got all of the other demons under his control because he defeated them all, Krishna and Balaram just started to laugh. They just started to laugh, and when they heard Krura's vision. And Balaram said, what does he want to do? How he will destroy us, what he will do? And Krura said, he wants to kill you by these strong wrestlers. And Balaram said, those fat, big wrestlers will kill Krishna and me. And then Krishna was, ooh, I'm so scared, and what he will do, and then Akrura said, very concerned, he will bring this Kalyavapana, this big elephant, he will pierce you. And then Balaram was, oh, I'm so scared. They were making jokes and fun out of that situation. Until then Nanda Maharaj came, and he saw what is the situation, and he was very, of course he loved Krishna, he was his parent, and he didn't want that anything bad happened to him, but still he decided, they convinced him, and he decided that they will go to bring the gifts for Kamsa, because he was following these social orders. But then, and Mother Yashoda, in that moment when she found out, she was out of herself, this motherly love. She was like yelling at Nanda Maharaj for even thinking about bringing Krishna to Mathura and to Kamsa. Even if she didn't know all of these things that Kamsa is planning to kill Krishna and everything. So she was like yelling at Nanda, and she was hiding in the same moment Krishna behind the curtains and behind here and there, and on the end behind the altar of Varahadev. So she was trying to protect him. But in the end she also complied, because Nanda said that they will bring him immediately in the evening, because it was like a big festival in Mathura and everybody around will be coming. So they were also afraid what will Kamsa do if they don't come also and bring their gifts. But we see forward that the gopis acted totally different. They were like, with this bad news happen, first thing is that people become stunned. They were like stunned. They could not move. They were not able. They were pale, so they didn't know what to do. And then they were falling unconscious. Srimati Radharani, who was cooking the dinner for Krishna, she was like totally behind herself, and she fell unconscious. And then the manjaris were thinking what to do, and all the gopis, they were like beside themselves. So all of these pastimes, this particular pastime is very, heart-touching and very, for the devotees, very sad that Krishna was being taken out of Vrindavan. But we, of course, I will just mention that these pastimes of, I will mention a few more things about these incidents, but we need to understand it. I know you are here, all the senior devotees. I don't know who is listening on the Zoom, so I will mention this just as a disclaimer. The point is that these pastimes are transcendental, and our conditioned mind is used to material, relationships of loved ones, which is usually concerning the selfish, lust, just wanting to enjoy other person. And it's very hard to switch our mind to grasp the depthness of the love that gopis had towards Krishna, which was unselfish. It was unselfish. Gopis were acting like this, not just because of their selfish desires. It was not because of their selfish desire. They were acting like that because they knew that Krishna will not be happy anywhere else outside of Vrindavan. So that was their intention, that was their love, that was their mood behind. And that's why they were so distressed. And they could not imagine losing Krishna for just one moment, because he was their lovable object, everything. They didn't have anything else in their life. They were doing everything just to please Krishna. By their dressing, by their behavior, they left everything behind themselves. And now their lovable object, the love of their life, everything that is planning to leave. And they had this deep conviction in themselves that he will not return, because he will go and need to kill a lot of demons and go in Mathura and all of these other things. And so they were like beside themselves. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. So they were like, when they came a little bit to consciousness, and when they saw that, so before they tried to interrupt that Akrura brings Krishna outside of Vrindavan, that was the longest night ever. The gopis, Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and everybody, they didn't want the sun to go out. So the whole Vrindavan, all animals, all trees, and everybody was so distressed. And when the morning happened, when Akrura needed to bring Krishna outside of Vrindavan, it was such a pitiable state that, and gopis were so beside themselves that they lost all of their shyness, which for the gopis is like, it's not like today's, in today's world when ladies lose their shyness. For gopis it was something unthinkable. It was there, that was like they will lose everything, they will give totally themselves out, so took sticks and they started beating Akrura. They brought him down from the chariot. They were kicking him with the bracelets and everything. It's such an intense experience. And Krishna was also in such separation from the gopis. He could not believe that he's going outside the Vrindavan. So I'm mentioning some of these things that just that we could connect a little bit more ourselves with the love, the intense love that gopis and Vrajavasis have for Krishna. It was unthinkable for them that Krishna will live. And I'm also mentioning this because many persons who don't understand these pastimes deeply condemn Krishna, that he left the Vrajavasis, that he left them behind himself, and that he went to Mathura, to Dwaraka, to royal places, to enjoy and to have queens, and the Vrajavasis who loved him the most, that he left behind himself. But Krishna, who is the most softest person, whose heart is more softer than the butter, he was so beside himself, and he even fell unconscious also. So Akrura was holding him that he doesn't fall off the chariot. And then when they left, Krishna said, I will return. And that was the only hope for the Vrajavasis, that Krishna will return. This is something that left them on life in the meantime, because they were so behind themselves, like beside themselves, like trees were crying. The animals, the deers were just looking on the way where Krishna left, and they just stand like that beside themselves. Like the squirrels, the other animals were just looking on the path that Akrura went with his chariot. They didn't know what to do. The only thing why they all didn't died is because the gopis were there. And the gopis were also like wanting to die and leave their body, but they didn't die because they knew that Krishna will also then leave his body. So that was their depthness of love, because they were just there to serve Krishna, so that Krishna is pleased. So they knew if they die, even their separation was so intense, that Krishna will also, be sad because of that. So they maintain themselves alive. But now I will switch also to understand this more deeply. So when we are reading it in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like some romantic thing, and like we see that Krishna is like breaking heart of the Vrajavasis and everything. But it's not mundane, like I mentioned at the beginning. It has a different substance. The gopis, even though they felt such a separation, even though they were like, they wanted to die, it was not the same depression, it was not the same sadness that we feel in our lives. It has totally different quality. The quality of that is ecstasy. The ecstasy in which they were associating with Krishna, and they felt even deeper love and connection with Krishna. It's something totally different. So Krishna knew that. And not only that they were associating with Krishna, because the gopis, when the Krishna was not there, they were hallucinating. They were like also being in the pastimes of Krishna. Even on the prakata level of, manifested level of Vrindavan. But also on the unmanifested level, Krishna was always there. He was always there with the gopis. He never left gopis. And Krishna by himself, his original personality, never leaves Vrindavan. Only Vasudeva Krishna goes out and goes to Mathura and goes to Dwaraka. So Krishna is always in Vrindavan, sometimes in manifested and sometimes in unmanifested form. So he was there with the gopis, but still it was such a strong emotional experience. And by reading this, if we connect also with what's written in Srimad Bhagavat, and also what past acharyas explained, we can see the quality of that love. And also, until I read these pastimes from Shivara Maharaj, explained it very nicely in Krishna Shangati, meetings of Krishna. And he explained how Krishna felt when he left, when he was in Mathura and when he was in Dwaraka. He was all nights crying for the gopis, because he didn't love them for his own pleasure to hurt them. He was crying, he was calling, "Oh Radha, oh Yashoda, please bring me butter. Oh Gopas, let's go and play." And his queens of Dwaraka knew that he was always longing for Vrajavasis, that he was always, and many times you could see Krishna just, being stunned or just being somewhere else, like in clouds, thinking about the Vrajavasis. And sometimes some people criticize Krishna that he never returned, that he promised that he will return and he never returned. But that is not true. Krishna is one of his qualities that he is truthful, and also he said that the promises of his devotees will never perish, that it will always become true. So when his devotees also promised that Krishna will return, so Krishna did return, and he returned before he left for Dwaraka, whilst he was still in Mathura, and he returned to visit the gopis. First he sent Uddhava, and Uddhava promised that Krishna will return, and then Uddhava told Krishna, they will die. When he explained him what is the situation in Vrindavan and how the gopis and Vrajavasis feel, Krishna was behind himself. He could not maintain his composure. So he came back. He came back to Vrindavan, and he came few times to Vrindavan. He came from Mathura, he came after he killed Jarasandha, and he came also from Dwaraka, and he met gopis in Kurukshetra. And also the gopis, you can see from another perspective, they were the queens of Dwaraka. So they didn't just left. They were not just left in Vrindavan. So when Krishna didn't return anymore, so they ended their life, and they became the queens that Krishna rescued from the demons. And Radharani became, so they just became different queens in Dwaraka also. And there is even deeper pastimes that Krishna had of Vrindavan inside of the Dwaraka and such things. But you can see from those things what is this love that Krishna has towards his devotees. Krishna's heart is so soft, and Krishna's heart is owned by the love of his devotees. It's the whole substance of Krishna. So Krishna is just a puppet on the hands of his devotees. And we can see this from different pastimes, from the pastimes of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni, when Durvasa Muni have done something to his lovely devotee Ambarish Maharaj, how Krishna immediately sent his Sudarshan Chakra to finish Durvasa Muni, and then Durvasa Muni wanted to get help from different personalities like Shiva, like Brahma, and nobody could help him. So Shiva, by the mercy of Shiva, he came in contact with Narayan, with Vishnu, and just because of mercy of Shiva, because Shiva told him Narayana Vishnu would not manifest himself before Durvasa Muni because he was not qualified. But by the mercy of Shiva he came, and then he explained to Durvasa Muni, he changed his heart, it was also pastime, and he explained how dear devotees are to him, how they are controlling him, and he is just a puppet in their hands. And he said that even he cannot forgive the offense that he has made towards his devotees, Ambarish Maharaj, that he needs to go and fell down before the Ambarish Maharaj to beg for his forgiveness. So dear are devotees to Krishna. So this is very important to understand that we are also in our Krishna consciousness. ISKCON is a place which enables us to exchange 6 loving exchanges between devotees, open our mind confidentially or hear others on a confidential, on a thoughts, to share prasadam, to give prasadam, and to accept and share gifts. And Srila Prabhupada said that he established ISKCON to make these loving exchanges between devotees. And by the mercy of the devotees, that's the only way how we can progress in spiritual life. Because bhakti is not something that you can achieve by your endeavor. It's being given, so it's independent. Bhakti is independent, as it is when we come to Krishna consciousness, and also when we are practicing Krishna consciousness. It's a process of mercy. It's a process of attaining mercy and blessings from the Vaishnavas who have it, from the pure devotees if possible, and for the other Vaishnavas. So the point is that I wanted just to come to this thing which is the most dear to Krishna, and the Chandramauli Maharaj yesterday we spoke, and he shared a beautiful thing that this mood of separation from Krishna is a mood that Lord Chaitanya brought, and this is the mood that Lord Chaitanya is having in this world. So this is the mood of our Gaudiya Vaishnavas, this mood of separation, love in separation. And this love in separation is actually service, serving Krishna and not wanting anything in return. So unmotivated service, devotional service which is pleasing to Krishna without any material motives. So this is actually the mood that we should have in order to achieve such high states of Krishna consciousness, of love towards Krishna. And one of the highest service that we can do to please Lord Chaitanya and to achieve this love is also to preach. So in order to cultivate this bhakti that we got, this bhakti lata bij that we got when we came to Krishna consciousness, is to perform our sadhana. And the second thing which is nourishing it is to preach what we got to the others and to help other conditioned souls to open their eyes and to come and to become devotees. So I just wanted shortly to share this important thing that we can inspire us also to preach and to continue to help conditioned souls to come, because it will also help us. Even if this is unselfish activity, it's most selfish activity, because this will help us to also grow in our spiritual life and attain higher states of Krishna consciousness. But even though this philosophy and this Krishna consciousness is so great, why then everybody in this world doesn't come and become devotee? Why? Why doesn't everybody become devotee? There is different reasons, and the most important part is that bhakti is independent and it's being given, granted from the devotees to the others. And but even if the bhakti is independent and if it's being given, this is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in Madhura Kandabini, why then the devotees whose heart is moved to serve Krishna and to bring more conditioned souls to Krishna, why they don't share that bhakti to everybody? Why do they just don't give it to everybody, this bhakti lata bij? The point is that in order to preach, we need to come to the level of Madhyamadikari. So we have three different levels: Kanishtadikari, which is the beginner level; the Madhyamadikari in the intermediate level; and Uttamadikari. So the Madhyamadikari is a devotee who is on the stage of having deep faith in the process, and he's preaching and helping, trying to preach and trying to help innocent people to come towards Krishna consciousness. He associates with devotees, and he also neglects the envious and the miscreants. So he doesn't dedicate himself to those who are not qualified. Why? Because in order for a person to receive Bhakti Lata Bij, he needs to have a certain piety, but not normal piety. He needs to have a spiritual piety. That means Agyata Sukriti. Agyata Sukriti is the opportunity, that's a piety which is got from doing some unconscious service towards Vaishnavas, like doing something, helping a Vaishnava in something, or digging a well where some Vaishnava gets water when he planting trees or whatever. So little by little through the lives, we get such Bhakti Agyata Sukriti. And this Bhakti Agyata Sukriti is a fertile ground for the devotees to plant the Bhakti Lata Bij. This is very important. So it's not that we can, if somebody doesn't have this Agyata Sukriti, we can expect for everybody to become devotees. But still, if pure devotees are there, they can, even if the piety is not so strong, the purest devotees are, they can help to bring people closer to Krishna consciousness. So if we have, this is the two variables in the equation of how to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So the first variable is piety, this Bhakti Agyata Sukriti, and the second one is the purity of the devotee who is preaching. So if we have very pure devotees, even if we have Madhyamadikaris who are very pure, they can much easily help people to come, to cross this Agyata Sukriti that is lacking and give them that part. And Uttamadikaris, even they are not so willing to preach because they are totally inside of their inner bhajan. But if they come down, not come down, but they start acting as Madhyamadikaris like Srila Prabhupada has done, their purity is much, much more stronger. So they can purify and bring more souls, more quickly, and bigger amount of these souls. So this association of pure devotees is amazing opportunity that we should seek and that we should really try to use so that we could also in our spiritual life grow our Bhakti Lata Bij, shower her with this shower of mercy, and also help other people to come towards Krishna consciousness. But important part is for us and also for others is to understand that the Bhakti Lata Bij is not the only bij. There is many other bijas that are out there. Srila Prabhupada says there is altruistic bijas, there is political bijas, there is different kinds of bijas, and today in the world we have television, social networks, there is different bijas that we start planting in our heart. So we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful how to cultivate our heart, how to uproot all of these other things that is not pure devotional service, so that this Bhakti Lata can grow and give fruits of pure love of Godhead, and that we could experience such intense emotions and such love towards Krishna, because Krishna is not cheap. Krishna is not cheap because if he gives himself, then he gives himself fully. He becomes a puppet in the hands of those devotees who developed Prema, who go on this ninefold devotional ladder. So that's why we need to cultivate our Krishna consciousness very carefully, watch out to uproot these other weeds that are growing out around our Bhakti Lata, and also to be very careful not to make offenses to the Vaishnavas which are very dear to Krishna, like we spoke before, because offenses to Vaishnava is like a mad elephant trampling around our garden of heart. So if we perform this process of devotional service how is it explained in the Shastras, it's guaranteed that we are going to get love of Godhead, and it's guaranteed that we are going to get Krishna on the end. So the point is only how much do we understand, how our Shraddha is deep, how much do we read Srila Prabhupada's books, and how much do we put that in practice. And depending on that quality, Krishna manifests and we grow and we little by little grow in our spiritual life and develop higher and higher stages of Prema. So I'm sorry, because I know there is much more senior devotees here. I explained this also for newcomers who are maybe on the internet, and it was more for my purification. So hope that I didn't said anything wrong, and if there is any corrections and if there is any questions or comments, please. Thank you, Murti Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you.
for sharing your realizations with others. It was very nice, especially since you have to do it.
Thanks to you.
Especially because you have to do it, right impromptu, like that.
Yeah.
So, thank you so
Maharaj
much.
is merciful.
Yes. Maharaj, mercy on us to hear you, to have your association. There's a couple of things that, capture my attention. Well, one is this last point that you did, took in the class in terms of preaching and Madhyama's preaching, the importance of preaching. Before that, I also was intrigued by the presentation of the Bhagavatam of the different reactions of, different Brijavasis.
Yeah.
And highlighted is the reactions of the gopis in the narration of the Bhagavatam. The other devotees are not mentioned, although as you point out, Mother Yashoda was also broken-hearted, and so we know in some of the pastimes that we hear in Vrindavan that, they're always devastated. But Nanda Maharaj reacted, okay, so let's, we're all going. So send a message to all the cowherdsmen to put their milk products, and we're going to pay tax, and we're going to the festival. And we know also that Krishna and Balaram, when they were in Mathura, the cowherd boys were there. And then, they were sort of marching around and looking at the city and having fun, especially like an adventure type of thing. So it's just, contrasting those different reactions was very intriguing. So that's one, just an observation. Of course, as you say, these are pastimes that are transcendental.
Yeah.
To try to understand, the different shades and shapes of Krishna's relationship with his devotees in Vrindavan is quite something.
I will add later, but one small point to that. I can do it. The thing is that Gopas and Nanda Maharaj went with Krishna to Mathura. So they were in the association of Krishna. And they knew that Krishna killed so many demons and so things. But the gopis, Yashoda and the other animals, they were left behind. So, that's the difference. They were going with Krishna and these were left behind. So that's why these emotions were more intense. And Nanda Maharaj was decided that he will go with Krishna to bring him back. So he made that, how to say, what is the English word? He said that he will bring him back. I forgot what it said.
That makes sense. That makes sense, yes. The other thing, and quickly, so I don't take too much of the time, the preaching that you explained, how important it is. And I was thinking from the perspective of not being in the Madhyama platform, what to speak of Uttama platform, when you're in the Kanishta platform, we preach because, and with all the sincerity we preach, but is affected still. There is our upadis becomes part of our. It gets mixed up with our also with preaching, and there's this thing that says that in the Kanishta Adhikari, we don't have a great deal of discrimination, or the discrimination is lesser. It's a problem on them. So, and the other thing is also that because it's combined with this self-centered ego, then and sometimes a lack of discrimination, there are certain things that we have blind spots that we may not understand that I have, that this anartha is popping out and I'm maybe committing offenses or things like that. We don't see those type of things. We just see it coming at us. So how do you deal, because you say we have to be aware of offenses, Jai Maharaj. While preaching, we have to be aware of offenses that we may be committed. But if we have a blind spot and we don't see that, how can we be helped on that situation?
This last part, you mentioned that we have offenses in our spiritual life, or while we are doing the preaching.
While having all those obstacles, as we perform our devotional service and we preach, how can we help in the situation that we have those limitations and those blind spots in which we can actually, blind spot means I don't see it. I don't necessarily see that I have this anartha creeping in, that it may be affecting my devotional service and even my preaching.
It's a complex question. I would maybe for Chandramauli Maharaj, if you could just make a short connection together, and if Maharaj would like to answer it, otherwise I will.
We can't see our anarthas. Is that what the question is? And what do we do? Yeah. Well, get rid of the blind spots. The process of devotional service is two: what to do and what to avoid. Nishedas and vidyas. Shedas are things to avoid, vidyas are things to do. The anukulena Krishna and pratikul. Anukulena means what is favorable and what is unfavorable. And so one of the 6 symptoms of surrender, or 2 of the 6 symptoms of surrender, is to know what is favorable and what is unfavorable. Now, if you feel like you have a blind spot and you can't understand what the blind spot is, then you can inquire. Like, I can see that I'm not functioning, up to the standard. What is it that I need to know? Seek some guidance from some superior person to help you understand where that blind spot is and how to overcome it. But generally, we're supposed to, as we make progress, we're supposed to be able to distinguish between what is favorable and what is unfavorable. So that's part of the execution of successful devotional service, to know. Yeah. So that these things are listed like that. But if you're trying, and you get some indication and you can't understand, then inquire. And best to inquire from one's spiritual master. He'll give you the exact understanding and clarity. But if that person is not available for whatever reason, then go to someone who is on the equal level. Yeah. Yeah. We can't, sometimes we can't see that. The false ego cannot be seen. Everyone else can see our false ego, but we can't see ours. Because it's so subtle. It's very subtle. So therefore, there's where advice comes. And usually the blind spots are more on the subtle level, they're not on the gross level. Those we can see. And the false ego is the person or the element that kind of keeps everything hidden at the same time is active in the background. So that's the guy to watch out for. Even to detect him is very difficult. For instance, I might be doing the right thing, but my motivation is wrong. Or motivation may not be wrong, it just may not be up to the standard. The motivation may be for something personal, some gain from that. I'm going to give some charity to the temple because I know, it'll make me feel good to put my name on the board outside. When everybody walks into the lobby, they'll see my name. Oh, I gave some money, wow. And I'll feel good because, my name is getting spread. But the motivation is mixed with personal interest. So that's a kind of a blind spot that may not be so obvious. Well, I'll do something for you, but in the future, you should do something for me. That's another mixed program. Where I did something for you in the past, and now I have something that I need from you in the present, so don't you remember? Another blind spot. Can be, anyway. So these are some examples. You want to add to that? Okay.
What can I add, Maharaj, to you? I can maybe only reflect to the first part of the question before Maharaj came, how these Kanishtadikaris can preach. And so Maharaj wonderfully said about the blind spots and everything. It's impossible to add anything to that. But it's not a point that Kanishtadikaris is it's just you shift and become Madhyama. It's process of growing and developing these qualities. And in the beginning, Kanishtamadikari doesn't have desire to preach. He is mostly focused on himself, on his spiritual life, on Krishna. He fights with the devotees. But growing in our spiritual life by guidance, like Maharaj said, of the senior devotees, and also by reading, this is very important part that is being emphasized, this guidance of the senior devotees and of understanding the knowledge and the literature which are explaining those things, and then little by little, because growing in our spiritual life, it's based on faith, on the level of faith, which is also being developed by the guidance and association of pure devotees, and also by knowledge about the process of Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, that first part. So, and then, thank you, Maharaj, for answering such nice.
Yeah, nice class, Prabhu. And I have a question to Maharaj is here also. Krishna took his dinner. That means he ate his meal. So, according to that Brahmacharya Vrata, means those who are acharyas are explaining that in this verse, that who are 8 years, above the 8 years old, and if they have not taken any upanayana, means like that sacred thread, they should not, they can eat, but those who have not taken, they can eat. Those who have taken, they should not eat. So, on this point, can you please clarify? I'm a little confused.
I'm sorry, but I didn't heard clearly. I could not understand because of this echo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not about you, it's the echo. I could not understand clearly the question.
Yeah, question is, Krishna ate dinner.
Okay?
Along with Akrura, he took.
When Akrura came.
Yeah. So, Acharya is explaining on Dwadasi day, specifically, on Dwadasi day, we should not eat 2 times.
We should not eat
2 times.
2 times.
Because, if you have not, you have taken Brahmana initiation, you should not eat 2 times. And if you have not taken Brahmana initiation, then you can eat. So on this is a scriptural injection. So for that point, I am little got confused, or I want more clarification on this point. If you know.
Maharaj, if you'd like to say something about that, eating 2 times for Brahmana, that it's not allowed, he said that there is a scriptural injunction that Brahmana should not eat 2 times, dinner I suppose, isn't it?
The Brahmanas should not do what?
Eat 2 times. On Dwadasi day,
On Dvadashi eat 2 times.
2 times.
It doesn't matter. That's not important.
Yeah. This is actually maybe just from another perspective to answer that. Rules and regulations are important on the beginner stages of spiritual life. When we come to the point of Raganuga and Ragatmika Bhakti, which is devotional service in ecstasy, rules and regulations are not necessary anymore. But until then, all these rules and regulations are really important. So, but Akrura and the Gopas and the Gopis were not on the level of sadhana bhakti.
Yeah, you answered it. Devotional service doesn't go through all these, karma kanda stuff, all this ritualistic stuff. If there's a need to, do it. If there's no need, then follow that. The need would be like, maybe the Brahmin has to preach that day, so therefore maybe he needs to take prasadam a second time. So that supersedes the injunction of once. So we are not, we're not a society of rules and regulations. Rules and regulations are meant to support the position of devotion. And if they take away from it, then we consider the principles of bhakti to be supreme. For instance, when it comes to preaching, like it says that don't eat meat. So, but then Prabhupada received a letter from one devotee who was preaching in Russia, and he said, Prabhupada, there's nothing to eat here except meat. Prabhupada said, eat meat, but preach. In other words, if you can't find food, and that's causing you not to be able to do your service, then take what is available. But the preaching must go on. But you can't take advantage of that. And to think, well, that's what Prabhupada said, therefore we can eat meat. No, that's an emergency situation, and that's a specific instruction, so.
Yeah, thank you for such a nice answer.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful class. My question is that the gopis, they knew that they didn't want to lose Krishna, and they mentioned that because they knew that Krishna wouldn't be able to live without them. And for us, it is different. We are coming to the temple, we have Krishna in our lives right now, but somehow we lose Krishna sometimes. There are many devotees, they are here for many, many years, but then they suddenly disappear. So, what is it that we are doing wrong, and what is it that we should do so that we are here till the end of our lives? So this is one question, and I have another one. Should I ask that?
Maybe first, the first question, would you like Maharaj to answer? Or? I'm like a glowworm beside the sun, so but I can try with your inspiration. So, and the point is that spiritual life is a scientific process. So if we don't follow the prescribed process, that it's like we are in spiritual life and it's like that we came to doctor, that we want to become cured. So it's not that we are immediately healthy. So we come, we are unhealthy, and we are in the process of curement. So we need to very carefully follow the instructions from the doctor that he is giving to us. And we need to have a doctor who will help us. Like Maharaj said before, we need to have senior devotees who are going to help us and point out what are those areas that we are doing wrong, that we need to change in order to grow spiritually. Because in many times our Bhakti Lata Bij is when we are pouring water with our sadhana, with our service, we are pouring water also about on many weeds around it. Weeds, like Maharaj said, of like wanting glory, wanting to get something out of it, and there is different things that are explained in Shastras, which can be there. It can be also wanting disciples, it can be wanting position, it can be wanting material comforts when we become little senior, or this or that. It depends on which level of spiritual life we are on. So if we don't pluck out those weeds, like they will strangle our bhakti. And what will happen usually is that we become offensive. And then the offenses usually are those which like trample our Bhakti Lata Bij, like I mentioned in the lecture. This mad elephant usually tramples over all the garden that we have cultivated, and that just then Krishna says, okay, I don't want like that you, how to say, downgrade yourself even more, so I will just cover you with the illusion, and I will just make it on pause so that you go through the different other life experiences, so that you change your mindset, and then come again humbly before the devotees and before Krishna so that you can progress. So the point that it's not the devotees leave, like the Krishna consciousness is over for them, it's just a pause, like on a semaphore, like it's just a red light. Krishna put a red light, okay, you need to change some behavior, you need to change something, you need to go through some experiences, and then again comes the green light that we can continue. So sometimes it's in this life, sometimes it's in other life, so it depends on what we need to cross. But we should always, if somebody leaves, if somebody goes away, we should always be respectful. And one of the biggest issues is that when somebody leaves or does some gross activity or offense, is that this, how to say that in English, he's feeling like really, he needs to feel repentant, but like if devotees are not humble and they don't welcome him nicely, it's hard for him to come back, because if everybody looks at him, like, look what he has done, look him, look here, this and that, so it's very hard. So we should always make opportunities for devotees who have left, who have done something, to come back and to continue properly to practice spiritual life. Not to look down on them, look at him, look at this, look at that, so it can happen to any one of us if we are not careful. So I forgot the word, but anyway, English word. But you could understand what I was planning to say. Maharaj, would you like to add something if I missed something?
I think he has. Did he answer
Okay. Something.
I had one more question. Can I
Okay, well, it's a second question, yeah, please.
I have this strong desire of sharing whatever I've received through ISKCON with my relatives. I know that you should not preach to your relatives. They can observe what changes are there in your behavior and lifestyle. But sometimes our relatives are so far away, so I send messages, whatever I've learned, and then most of the time they get irritated. They get irritated.
Irritated, yeah. what to do.
Yeah, so should I stop or what to do? I don't understand. But I have this urge of sharing, so it's not working. What should I do?
Can I maybe ask it in other words? So she was, yeah, because it's echo. Yeah. So she was saying that she is very enthusiastic to help her relatives to come to Krishna consciousness, and many times some relatives that are not close, she sends them messages encouraging them, but they feel annoyed by that. So what to do in such a situation? Should she continue to try to inspire them about Krishna consciousness, or stop because they are annoyed by her enthusiasm?
That's a question we get a lot, you know. They say it's the hardest group of people to influence is the people who are family members like that. Because they see you in a certain way, and then sometimes they can't change. You can also change your way to try to change them, maybe deliver the message in a different way. What I find is one of the ways you can do is just give them prasadam, of course. That helps. Invite them to come to the temple for different programs and festivals. Philosophical words generally are the hardest for people to accept. But more like kindness, invitations to different programs, prasadam, and your own spiritual advancement are all ways to make an impression on others, especially relatives. It depends. Some relatives are neutral, and some are favorable but don't want to get involved, and some are just completely unfavorable. Depends. I don't know what your situation is. They're very unfavorable? Very unfavorable? Or? Mm-hmm. So what would you think would work to make them more favorable? Maybe you just give up. We also say you can't put ghee on ashes. You have to put ghee on the fire. If there's nothing there to spark, then you're just wasting your time. A lot of times we find that what works the best is that we make advancement, and then we exhibit the good qualities of that advancement, and then they start to look and see, oh, my relative there, she's become so nice. She's become very spiritual. That's one way. But, it depends on the persons here. Sometimes you have a Prahlad and you have a Hiranyakashipu in the same family, So it's like that sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare
Maharaj,
Krishna.
you very nicely explained it, yeah. So, to develop qualities, and then Madhyamadikari is also always looking how to see that. But, yeah, this purity, like we spoke on the lecture, is very important, so...
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. You gave a wonderful class. The point I want to highlight is you were mentioning that Krishna is always truthful. Krishna is always truthful. And you also mentioned 6 loving exchanges. So we see in any society, whether spiritual or material, that what prevents us from having loving exchanges is not so much standards, because standards are supposed to be in a community, but we also see double standards triple standards, quadruple standards. And so here's a nice verse that I appreciate. I'll share with you from the Bhagavatam of One Standard by Prithu Maharaj. This is from the 4th Canto, chapter 16, verse 13. It says, since King Prithu will always remain on the path of piety, he will be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy. If the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him. So we see, and since we're under the most material nature, it's usually the opposite. Nobody says, I have to expose my wife's faults, my son's faults to the community. It's usually, anyone you have some argument with. So my question is that in the spiritual community, you mentioned the word prescription, and prescription is given by doctors or authorities. So in the spiritual community, there's so many authorities. And you were also mentioning we should accept things that are favorable for our devotional service. So is it considered an offense when you accept one authority in a spiritual community and not another? Because accepting more than one authority, that's not favorable for your Christian conscience, because people have, like Maharaj says, everyone has their motives, including myself. And so what keeps me steady in my Christian conscience, focusing on devotees who inspire me the most. And that doesn't mean to offend them, but that doesn't mean necessarily to take their instructions. Like Prahlad never took the instructions of Hiranyakashipu. So what do you say to someone who feels like they're being offensive, they're committing Vaishnava Aparad when they don't want to accept every authority, everyone who wants to give them unlimited advice? So what do you say to devotees who go through that situation?
Okay. So, first of all, in a community of devotees, we are all under the treatment to become healthy. Some more, some less. So it's we can always find faults in everybody. Shishupal found faults in Krishna. He was criticizing Krishna, who is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can always do that. This is the condition of our mind. We can always pinpoint the faults of others. So it depends on what we focus. Do we focus on good qualities, or we focus on the faults? This is very important, because if we focus on the faults, we will always find faults in everybody. And we also need to be very careful if we are trying to find the authority for ourselves, that we have a lot of, hidden motives and hidden desires behind. So we can always try, we can maybe try to find somebody who will be lenient towards us, who will pet our selfish desires and pet our hidden motives. So we need to be careful. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was being heavily criticized by one person. And when that person left his body, I think Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said that he was his biggest friend and well-wisher, because he was helping him to, to become better. What to say? This is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's example. So the point is that to find authority inside of the community, it's important, like Maharaj said before, to have guidance of a spiritual master, if it's possible. If it's not possible, then usually usually in communities which are developed, the mentorship system is set up, which means that devotees who have certain qualities, who are empowered and who are able to guide others, take up those responsibilities. And then if we have 10 devotees who are empowered, then we can choose between them. But important is that devotee is empowered, like a spiritual master. Spiritual master is empowered by ISKCON, and he's empowered and he's well situated. So if we choose a different spiritual master, it's our choice. But if we choose somebody just because he's lenient, or he's like encouraging our, like anarthas or behaviors that are not constructive to our spiritual life, and we are feeling good about it, it's maybe not the best choice. And it's always the most important point in spiritual life is humbleness. We are eager to hear from anybody. But of course we follow the instructions from our authorities. So if Marge, you want to add something upon that, or? Yeah. So was that okay, or would you like, is there some still question in your mind?
That's okay. Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shai.
And one important point that I want to emphasize here, Vaishnava's culture is based on respect. Vaishnava's culture, like our culture, is based on respect. So it's not based on criticism, finding faults, and all of the other things that modern society is based on. So modern society, if you ask anybody about anybody, he will pinpoint many faults about leaders, about people, about this and that. And in our culture, it's all about respect and looking on the good qualities, looking on the positive parts. So we can always learn from anybody. We can learn even from the animals what to say from the devotees. So if we have proper consciousness that we want to spiritually advance, that we want to spiritually grow, we will be able to learn from everybody. So, yeah. Okay, that's enough. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, His Holiness Chandramal Maharaj ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.